Now, from surveillance cameras that are on every street corner in some cities, we're going to bring you a story from Chicago, which shows just the extent that this city has been covered and canvassed by surveillance, to the Patriot Act provisions that have allowed for warrantless wiretapping but continue to be passed in the name of national security, to the Department of Justice calling for laws requiring mobile phone providers to collect and store information about their customers. Has privacy gone out the window in the United States? Is the country moving more towards a permanent police surveillance state? Well, here to decide is Jason Burmis. He's a documentary filmmaker and Seton Motley, president of Less Government. Let's start with the Patriot Act. Seton, Osama bin Laden is dead. Why do we need the Patriot Act still?
Because he wasn't the only terrorist on the planet.
What has the Patriot Act done to combat terrorism?
Well, you know, it's one of those things where you can't prove a negative. I am not for an untinkered with re-upping of the Patriot Act. I'm certainly for looking at it. I certainly want it to exclusively apply to terrorists. All of this stuff about domestic surveillance and all that is highly ridiculous and highly dubious, unless and of course the domestic surveillance is tied into somebody overseas or someone who the FBI and the CIA have gone and said, hey, we need to follow this person.
But it's been shown that it has been grossly misused by the FBI, where they have engaged in warrantless wiretapping without even going through any legal proceedings or even showing that it's warranted to get this information. So I want to ask you, Jason, if it's something that you can't prove that it's really been integral in the war on terror, is it okay to violate the Constitution? Unfortunately, I don't think Jason can hear me, so let me pose that question to you, Seton. What justifies violating the Constitution?
It doesn't necessarily violate the Constitution. For example, if you're tapping foreign citizens,
warrantless wiretapping doesn't violate the Constitution. You don't think?
Not if you're tapping non-citizens. No, because the Constitution doesn't apply to non-citizens.
But it wiretaps citizens.
Well, that's a totally different subject.
So is that unconstitutional?
Again, within the parameters of the Patriot Act, if you've got a legitimate reason via consistent information going to going from a foreign person who's not a citizen to someone who's internal who is a citizen and who is a terror suspect, again, perhaps not warrantless. I'm again for tinkering with it, for adjusting it. But if it's non-citizen to non-citizen, you don't need a warrant because it's not unconstitutional, because the Constitution doesn't apply to non-citizens.
But it's really been shown that the Patriot Act has gone far beyond its parameters and been misused. So what do you do about that?
Well, the first thing you do is punish the people who've gone beyond those parameters. I mean, there's all kinds of laws that get broken. The question is, what do you do? The immigration laws are serially violated. We don't enforce the law. The laws aren't broken. The enforcement of the laws is broken. Likewise, again, with the Patriot Act, if they're breaking the law, you have to deal with those people as lawbreakers.
Let's bring Jason into this. I think we may have him. Jason, do I have you?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. So do you agree with Seton? Is the problem not the Patriot Act? The problem is just tinkering with it a bit so that it's not misused?
Absolutely not. Large portions of the Constitution and Bill of Rights were completely eviscerated out in the open with the Patriot Act. Section 802 says that we can charge with pre-crime and pre-terror without defining it in any way, shape, or form. It's broadly defined. And with the apparatus of Homeland Security coming out after 9/11, with our cell phones tracking, tracing, and databasing each one of us, whether it's an iPhone, an Android, or a Microsoft phone, civil liberties have gone by the wayside in this country, and we need to take them back and prosecute large corporations that abuse their power.
What do you think about that, Seton? Is that a major problem in the United States?
Again, I don't want this applied citizen to citizen. Citizens have rights that non-citizens do not. I don't want the government, the Obama administration, going to cell phone companies and saying, keep your records, we'll be back for them later. That's obnoxious.
And that's what the DOJ is asking for now. That's the thing I want to bring up. So are you opposed to that?
Oh, absolutely. Eric Holder's way out of line on that. And this is not the first time. He is a serial offender of selectively choosing what civil rights to apply, selecting what color the civil rights get applied for and to. And this is an egregious abuse of citizens and the Constitution.
Where do we draw the line, Jason? What really needs to happen? What do you think is the most egregious example of this? And how can you, well, that's a question for Seton. I want to know how you cannot loop in the Patriot Act in that, but I want to know what you see as kind of the most egregious situation here.
Well, that we're not confronting the evidence that this has been going on for a long time. It's not just the Obama administration, it's the previous one and the one before that, that we had Hefting versus AT&T, which openly exposed that Norris Insight Systems, in conjunction with AT&T and the other large telecommunication companies out there, had a secret room where they were literally doubling up all the information and sharing it with our national security apparatus, whether that be the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, or now Homeland Security. We need to confront these issues now and not act like this is a new thing.
Seton, what do you think about that? Do you think this has been overlooked?
Well, first of all, it couldn't have been the administration before that with regard to the Patriot Act, because it was the administration. The administration before that was Clinton, and there was no Patriot Act under Clinton.
Well, I think when he's saying the administration before that, he probably means the Bush administration.
Well, he said, and then the administration before that. But the important point to make here is, if they're going case by case and going to a telecommunications company and saying, "Can we have the records of this person?" And they say, sure, then they can say, sure. But that's light years away from what Eric Holder's Justice Department is doing, which is keep records of everybody and we'll be back for them later. That's a little different than case by case going, we need this guy tracked. Okay, now we need this guy tracked. Versus the Obama administration, which is, hey, keep everybody's records for us, we'll be back for them later.
Do you see that distinction, Jason, or do you think it's a slippery slope?
Well, I think that we have warrants for a reason. And if a warrant is brought to a judge in which you're able to tap into somebody's cellular communications, their email, their internet activity, that's fine. But when these agencies go beyond the law and just openly do it, again, in the case of Norris, there is no distinction. It's everybody on the web. It's citizen. It's non-citizen. And this abuse has been going on for the better part of a decade now, and I don't see it ending.
Let's talk about corporations a little bit. Jason, I want to know, we saw Microsoft buy Skype for $8.5 billion, something that some are skeptical as to the valuation of Skype and why Microsoft would want to pay so much money for it when there really isn't a clear way that Skype can be monetized to that extent. Do you find anything suspicious in this?
Well, I disagree. I think it can be monetized to a large extent, especially with the launch of their Connect earlier this year, putting a spy device in everybody's home that is literally hooked up to the internet 24/7, 365, unless you pull out the Ethernet cable or unplug it. And if you read the article out of MSNBC, Connect controls the future, a game controller and everything, the makers of it brag that they get daily phone calls from large corporations and members in the military-industrial complex, both the military and the government, on how they can use this information. And they want to basically bring this into a holodeck experience. And it's the first video game system to give person-to-person video conferencing in the quality we're now seeing over broadband. So it makes sense for them to buy Skype because they have a built-in audience. They won't have a problem monetizing it at all.
But do you think that there's something suspicious about it, that this essentially, I mean, you're accusing Microsoft of spying here? Do you think this extends that?
They're openly spying. They openly say that they want to be able to read somebody's T-shirt, and if they're a Giants fan, then advertise to them through their Xbox Live Giants gear. This is beyond just categorizing people as terrorists. They want to know how to make a buck off you as well. So this, again, is a track, trace, database system where they're trying to predetermine your activities, your likes, so you can be a better consumer and a better slave in this police state.
Seton, what do you think? Do you think this is a problem? Because you know what, to his point, I have friends in tech, and this is happening, where you're getting targeted advertising
I'm in the tech sphere as well.
Each person. So what do you think? Is this a corporate overstepping?
I'm far less concerned with corporations giving me what I want via advertising than I am the government getting what they want from the telecommunications companies. The Constitution is written to protect us from the government, not from Microsoft and not from AT&T.
But here's what I don't get. That line has been so blurred. We've seen instances where the government has been able to get this information without really warranting it.
Barack Obama's entire online campaign in 2008 was Google, with a Facebook chaser. So there's crony capitalism in this administration, to be sure, and that's highly problematic. What we need is the government not being so big that it holds so much sway over the private sector that none of this problem would not exist.
Wait, that the government holds so much sway over the private sector, but it goes the other way. Who do you think? Is it the tail wags the dog, or who's wagging the dog here?
Well, the government, at the end of the day, if they don't like what the corporation's doing, they're going to slam them with regulations, as Barack Obama's done it again and again and again.
Jason, I think I see you nodding your head. You disagree.
Of course I disagree. The Hefting versus AT&T case, with over 87 texts coming out publicly saying they were sharing this information with the government, was thrown out of court twice. They were not prosecuted. These corporations never get prosecuted, especially when they're working with our government. Look at Google. Google went out with their Google Earth campaign and openly collected people's wireless data. No prosecution. They had a little trial, and all of a sudden, oh, everything's okay. They're allowed to take that information.
Well, that's a prosecution. That's a totally separate issue. I'm concerned with the regulatory hammer that the government carries, which I think is far more destructive and is far more frightening to these corporations. Give us what we want, or we're going to hammer you.
But for big corporations, what regulatory arm that strong-arms them? I mean, we've seen situations again and again where corporations have come out on top.
You saw,
BP being industry hasn't.
I'll just give you a broad-based example. In 2010, for the first time in eons, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce endorsed candidates against Barack Obama because of his abuse of the private sector, his abuse of free market businesses. Now he's got some friends. Google's a friend. Facebook's a friend. But that's crony capitalism. He abuses large swaths of the private sector and can do so with impunity, unfortunately, because the media is complicit and the private companies can only do so much.
Jason, what do you think about that?
I would disagree in full. I mean, the private companies seem to be able to be an extension of government activities. They don't get prosecuted. Show me one large corporation that has recently been prosecuted.
I didn't say prosecuted. I didn't say prosecuted. I said abused by the regulatory regime.
Give one example where a corporation has really been abused by the regulatory regime like you're citing.
Look at the oil industry. They can't drill. They can't.
He is expected to begin drilling again in the oil industry.
No. It's too late. He's already abused the process. Most of the big oil derricks have already left the Gulf to go drill elsewhere because they were tired of waiting for the Obama administration to give the green light.
But BP is expecting to drill again this very shortly.
That's one company. How many oil companies are there?
There's other leases that are
No, he's been stonewalling the lease process. He's been abusing the oil industry from the beginning. As he said during the campaign, if his plan is implemented, energy prices will necessarily skyrocket. And now we see what's happening.
Well, there's also unrest in the Middle East, which is factored in. And also we've seen a massive oil spill in the Gulf at a time when regulations haven't really changed. Let me just really quickly, I want to ask you, Jason, just real quick. We see China, the United States wants to break down and invest millions in breaking down the internet firewalls. Why does the United States feel that not only it can, possibly hurt civil liberties in the United States and even break the laws of other countries? Is this a problem?
I think it's a huge problem because basically what they're trying to do is regulate speech on the internet, what you can and can't see. And if something is unpopular and it may harm their persona, they're going to pull it off. We've seen other large nations do this. They have the kill switch. They've run drills in previous months of trying to kill the internet within their military system. And I do think this is a problem. We have to have an open and free internet, and we have to protect the speech that is most unpopular. I've said some pretty unpopular things out there that have turned out to be true. I may not agree with what this man is saying, but I defend his right to say it. And if the government has their way, they're going to get to decide who gets to say what.
So you're against net neutrality? So you're against net neutrality?
Well, I'm against internet too, and I'm against the government being able to have a kill switch on the internet. Absolutely. I'm against them trying to regulate what Google searches come up, trying to jam information wars. We're trying to get the info out to the people that it doesn't matter if this is Barack Obama's administration or George Bush's administration or the next administration. They are run by the corporatists, by the globalists, by the elitists. Look at Facebook. Who just infused hundreds of millions of dollars into them? Well, it's pretty simple. It was Goldman Sachs. Look who's on the Obama administration. People like Geithner and Bernanke. Who do they work for? Goldman Sachs. These are the true power brokers of this world.
See, and this is what I want to ask you. In this situation with China, he's kind of saying something completely different, that this is not about the United States wanting to kind of infringe on China's laws to allow freedom of the internet. It's about the United States getting to have control over the internet in China. Do you agree with that?
Well, that's why I'm totally against net neutrality. When the FCC in December power grabbed the internet without authority from Congress, 3 unregulated, unelected bureaucrats, Democrats, elected themselves internet overlords. I'm totally against that. I'm totally against the kill switch as he is. I don't want the government involved. The internet has become a free speech, free market Xanadu in America precisely because there has been zero government involvement. None. So when the FCC comes along and says, we're going to just impose net neutrality. We don't have authority from Congress. The chairman of the FCC, Julius Genachowski, admits, I don't have authority, he tells the Washington Post, but he does it anyway. They've already been thrown out in court once. They're going to try to do it. They've done it again. They're going to get sued again. The kill switch is a terrible idea. I don't want the government involved. As he points out, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, China, Iran, government, time after time, it's not corporations that are preventing people from speaking, it's governments that are keeping people from speaking.
Why does the United States feel like it can go into China, though, and essentially break Chinese laws and create technology that would directly contradict with China's sovereignty?
I would certainly, if there's companies that are doing that, I would certainly want to punish them in the way that we should punish.
Well, it's the United States government investing millions of dollars in this technology.
This is the Barack Obama administration. Please, for the life of me, don't ask me to defend what Barack Obama's administration is doing.
You're defending the Patriot Act. He's pushing for that.
Well, he's partially right on that. Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
All right. Well, Jason, I'm going to give you the final word. What do you think the United States needs to do as far as getting this under control? Do we need to take another look at civil liberties and also the laws we're breaking of other countries?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We need to get rid of the Patriot Act in full. We need to take away the Department of Homeland Security. We need to vastly revamp our intelligence apparatus to actually work for the people and not just declare national security whenever they do something unpopular.
I think you agree, Seton. I think you agree, Seton. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I want the government out of the communications business. I want them out of the information business.
All right, well, we're going to leave it at that. So many issues to cover. I want to thank Jason Burmis, documentary filmmaker, and Seton Motley, president of Less Government, for weighing in on those issues.